and we are going to start our webinar. So thanks for joining us tonight. We have two special guests, Jesse Kaiser. He's a lieutenant with our department, longtime hunter of Napa-Sonoma Marsh. And we have Melissa Amato. She joined us last time for our Don Edwards National San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge information. So she's going to be with us tonight presenting San Pablo Bay. As you know, I always like to start our webinar off with a poll and a joke, and it should be a little bit better this time. We'll see what happens. I'm going to allow my panelists to vote also. And here we go. Let me start with San Pablo. All right. So have you ever hunted the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge? Yes or no? And the joke is, why don't duck hunters from Napa get invited on trips? They whine too much. I actually made that up. I saw some stuff and hey, it's flying all right. I kind of combined a couple jokes together, but anyways, we'll keep going. And we have our 3 seconds, 2, 1. I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results. So 74% of you said you have never hunted San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. That's good. I mean, you're here in the right spot to learn a little bit more about it. And 90% liked my homemade joke. So thank you. I appreciate that. Let's go with the next one. Napa Sonoma Marsh. I'm going to launch it. Question is, have you ever hunted the Napa Sonoma Marsh? Yes or no? And the joke is, the ocean cut off all ties with the river because the river turned out to be too shallow. The only thing I could think of was Shallow Hal, the old movie about him. But hey, my joke's doing better. This one's gradually losing. All right. And I'll go 3, 2, 1. End of poll, share my results. So about the same percentage, only about 26% of you have hunted Napa Sonoma Marsh. So we have a low percentage of actual users. Jesse and Melissa, you have your work cut out for you to inform these people what their opportunities are that may be close to them, and see if maybe now we can get them out there in our local marshes out in the bay. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to let Melissa introduce herself and start her her portion of our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. And Sean, I'm not going to forget to share sound and optimize
the video.
Oh,
right.
There we go. Okay, let me get this in the right mode. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Melissa, and I'm going to be talking about waterfowl hunting at the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. So just a little bit about myself. It's weird to talk about myself, but I'm the Wildlife Refuge Manager for 3 refuges in the North Bay, Antioch Dunes, Marin Islands, and San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuges. I've been with the Fish and Wildlife Service for 17 years, and I've been managing the waterfowl hunt programs at both the Don Edwards and San Pablo Bay refuges for 14 years. I've spent all of my career conserving endangered species and migratory birds in the San Francisco Bay. And just a few things about me: enjoy camping, cooking, weightlifting, and I live here in Petaluma, California with my 9-year-old and my 1-year-old German Shepherd. So I'm just going to go over a few quick facts about the refuge before I dive into the waterfowl hunt program. The San Pablo Bay Refuge, which you can see circled at the top of the map, was established in 1970, and it's located in Sonoma, Napa, and Solano counties. And it's just over 20,000 acres, which makes it the 2nd largest refuge in the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge complex. The 1st largest being Don Edwards, as we discussed last Thursday. The San Pablo Refuge includes tidal marsh, mudflats, seasonal and restored tidal wetlands, which is what I'm going to talk more about on this for this webinar. So the refuge was established primarily to protect endangered species. You can see photographs here of the Ridgway's rail and salt marsh harvest mouse. These two species are critically endangered. They are endemic to the San Francisco Bay tidal marshes, so they do not exist anywhere else on the planet. The refuge was also established to protect migratory birds, restore habitats, educate the public, and we have what is called a Big Six for wildlife dependent recreation. And you can see that hunting is one of the big priorities for us. So this is a map located on our website. This is actually just a trail map, and I'll get to a waterfowl hunting map later on. But I just wanted to point out that everything that you see in green and pink is managed as part of the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. And the green is what we owe in fee title, and the pink is what we lease from the State Lands Commission. And all of that is managed as the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. So a quick overview of this season's waterfowl dates. We've already passed early goose season, and we're currently underway for regular duck season. Scaup season starts this weekend, and we will also be open for the youth hunt weekend and the military and veterans state hunts. For those of you wondering, the San Francisco Bay area falls within the balance of state zone. So a little bit about hunting on the refuge. Hunting is by boat only, so there's no hunting from land up here at the San Pablo Refuge, so there's no shooting from the levees. The open bay and navigable sloughs are open for hunting 7 days a week. We have two newer units, Cullinan Ranch and Dixon Ranch. Those are open 3 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday. And I'm going to talk more about those two units in a few moments. We do not have shot shell limits on the refuge. We don't have permits that are needed. We don't have check stations or forms. And of course, retrieval dogs are absolutely fine. So this is a waterfowl hunting map of the North Bay. You can find this map if you'd like to on our website. And I recommend you just Google San Pablo Bay hunting, and that will take you to our waterfowl hunting information page, where you'll see maps. And essentially everything that you see in brown is California Department of Fish and Wildlife lands. And then you can see again, the green and the pink areas are San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge. And the two pieces I am going to talk about, here's my cursor. I'm going to talk about the Dixon Ranch unit to the west, and I'll also be talking about the Cullinan Ranch unit over here to the east. So Cullinan Ranch unit. So just to kind of get you oriented, you can see that it's directly north of Highway 37. It is just west of the Napa River. And so the Cullinan Ranch unit is just over 1,000 acres, and it is boat access only. So there is a canoe kayak launch right over here near the parking lot. And if you have a larger motorized boat, you can also launch at Vallejo Marina, and you can boat in through the tidal breaches that you see if you just head up Dutchman Slough, and you can go into this unit through the tidal breaches. So I did mention it's boat access only. We do allow you to pull your boat up on a hunk. There's nesting islands out there. You could also pull your boat up on that north levee just to kind of get stabilized, and you can get out and you can hunt adjacent to your boat, and that's just fine too. We do allow both motorized and non-motorized boats. Again, hunting is Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, and no shot shell limits. So I love putting up photos for folks to see basically what pre-restoration looked like before we acquired Cullinan Ranch. It was just kind of an old oat hay farm that was fallow for many, many years. And you can see the photo on the right. This was a photo that was taken 24 hours after we breached this to the San Pablo Bay. And so it provided almost immediate habitat benefits for waterfowl. So that was very cool to drive by and see that. And then this is the Dixon Ranch unit. This was also breached to San Pablo Bay in 2015. This is also boat access only. Again, we have sort of a rudimentary boat ramp right here, just pretty close to one of our parking areas. You can see this is Highway 37, and it's at the intersection of Lakeville Highway. If you had a larger motorized boat, you would probably want to launch at Black Point and go down Petaluma River and in through the tidal breach that you see here at the bottom. So again, it's boat hunting only, and you can pull up on any kind of mud flat. You can pull up on the southern levee and shoot adjacent to your boat, and that's just fine too. So again, motorized and non-motorized boats are okay. We do allow 2- and 4-stroke motors on both units in case anybody had that question. Hunting is Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday, and we don't have a shot shell limit in this unit either. So I love to show these photos, this pre-restoration. So the Dixon Ranch units we named after Fred Dixon. He and his family had farmed oat hay here for many, many years. And so we had to start by removing the ranch off of the Dixon property. And this is, of course, what it looked like once we removed the ranch, the houses, the trees, and everything. And then it was a little bit fallow for about a year or so. And then we eventually breached this. And this is what this area looks like now on a very, very calm day. So just really quickly, some of the boat launches in the North Bay. Starting kind of to the east, you see Black Point, Green Point. So if you want to trailer a larger motorized boat, again, to get into any part of the San Pablo Bay or boat into the Dixon Ranch unit, that's where you're going to want to launch your boat. I'll show some photographs of the Dixon Ranch canoe kayak launch in just a moment, but that's another option if you have a non-motorized boat. At the top, you see the Hootaman Slough boat launch, and I believe that's still available for smaller boats to pull in. And then there's the Cullinan Ranch canoe and kayak launch. Again, that's for smaller boats. And if you wanted to have a larger motorized boat, you could also launch at Vallejo Marina. So as promised, Cullinan Ranch, the canoe kayak launch. This is the only photo I could find. And if you're worried about how little water you see, the reason is because this photo was taken before the unit was breached to the tides. So if you were to go out there now, you would be able to launch a canoe or kayak at any tide, regardless of low or high tide, because that's all in the water at this point. This is kind of our nicer boat launch. You can see there's a gangway that goes right off of the levee, and there's some canoe kayak slips that you can use. And so if anyone is more of a beginner and you want to hunt on the refuge, this is where I would probably recommend you begin, because it is tidal, but it's more muted tidal because it's not breached directly from San Pablo Bay. It's breached from Dutchman Slough. And so even at a very low tide, there's a pretty good amount of water in this unit.
Melissa, some people are asking how far it is, like from the parking to the launch.
Yes, yeah. So for the Cullinan Ranch canoe kayak launch, you can kind of see in the background, there's a kiosk here, this wooden structure on the right-hand side. That is where the parking lot is. And it's probably 100 feet from the parking lot. So it's pretty accessible from the lot.
Now, would a person be able to dolly in a kayak or boat if they had a dolly?
Yes.
Is there a berth wide enough for the boat to fit through?
Yes, there is. There's a place where you can pull your boat over.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's the Dixon Ranch boat ramp. And the reason the word ramp is in quotes is that when we designed the Dixon unit, we graveled a ramp all the way down into the water. But that was in 2015, and we've had so much sediment coming into this site since 2015 that a lot of that ramp is now bay mud. And so what I tell people is that the Dixon unit is very, very tidal. At a high tide, it's going to be full of water, similar to what you see in this photograph. But at a very low tide, it's almost all mud flat. So you want to be very, very conscientious of the tides if you're going to pull a canoe or kayak down this ramp. And this ramp is actually a little farther. It's about 0.2 miles from our parking lot. So you would definitely want to dolly your canoe or kayak over to this ranch or to this boat launch.
So as far as driving, some people are asking if they use their duck boat with mud motor. I'm assuming they probably wouldn't be able to launch, that type of rig there. They'd have to go to what was it, Cullinan, and maybe Jesse, what was the other one in the north? Hitaman or Hoodaman?
So I will speak to just Cullinan Ranch and the Dixon Ranch launches. You're going to want to have a boat. You're going to want to launch a boat there that it's lightweight and then you can pull into the levee. So there is no trailering down into the water the way you would at like a marina.
Okay. And do any of you know, Jesse or Melissa, how the safety is along Highway 37 as far as break-ins and all that stuff? Have you seen very much happen there?
I haven't had any reports from waterfowl hunters reporting any theft or any vandalism in our parking lots.
Jesse?
As always, I'd say, take precautions. Don't leave valuables out where people can see them, because let's face it, you're on a highway and you are vulnerable. So
Yeah.
Just be smart about it.
Right.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else, this is one of my last slides. It's the Sears Point levee breach that occurred in October of 2015. It's about a 1.5-minute video, and I just love showing this the video to folks to see what we did in October. So.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great. It's just always fun to watch a long reach excavator dig a hole in a levee. So, so contact information, you can reach me. That is my work cell phone number. You can always call, you can text that number. Of course, you can email me. If you need to get a hold of any of our law enforcement, you can call Park Police Dispatch. And of course, there's emergencies and Cal tip at the bottom. And then I just wanted to make everyone aware of the fact that I do administer a Facebook group for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The name of that Facebook group is San Francisco Bay Waterfowl, so you can search that once you're in Facebook. Join, and I'm finding that it's a really good way for hunters to communicate with one another. If people need advice about certain locations, if somebody wants to go to have a mentor, if somebody wants to tag along with another hunter in another area, this is the perfect place for that. So you can look us up on Facebook. And that is all I have. So,
Thank you, Melissa.
yeah.
There were a couple of questions, and I don't know if either one of you, Jesse, or you might be able to answer. A lot of people are asking about using like 12-foot boats or trailering, pull their trailer in there. I'm not familiar with the launch, but my guess is if it's a heavy boat, you won't be able to pull your trailer or your boat out of there just with, by manpower. So that probably wouldn't be something you'd want to do, right?
Yeah, that you're right, Sean. And also in addition to that, that parking lot they're going to use to access Cullinan Ranch is actually on the Fish and Wildlife property.
Mhm.
And they should not have trailers on our wildlife area. So
Okay.
they should just be coming in with a car topper or a small boat in the back of a car, ideally.
Okay. Yeah, somebody asked about a jet ski, and my guess is probably, I don't see how you'd be able to pull it out, extract it out of the water without, being able to pull it with your vehicle.
Right.
Yep. All right. Another question. I don't think it's there, Melissa, just to clear the board. Is there any tides, lowest tide posted at, where you're still navigable at Dixon Ranch?
No, there's not actually. It changes year to year.
Okay.
Do have a deep channel that goes through the Dixon unit, but that's a great question. And
Yeah.
I will make a note to see if there's something that we can get posted on our website.
Yeah, that would be nice to know minimums in some sense, like, hey, if the tide's a minimum of such and such, you're going to be facing, mass mud flats or something like that.
Yeah.
Be nice to know. All right, Jesse, have at it. Let's tell people about Napa Sonoma Marsh.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, so hopefully you have a full screen there, right?
Everything's good. Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I get to talk about the Napa Marsh Wildlife Area. And just to introduce myself, my name is Jesse Kaiser. I'm a lieutenant now with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I've been a wildlife officer for almost 24 years now. I grew up in Napa County, and then I started my warden career down in Monterey County, and I got to transfer back home essentially in 2002. And I patrolled out of the Solano County, primarily the Vallejo area. And from that position, I worked a lot of the marsh, especially the southern portion of the Napa Sonoma Marsh. And I knew it well because I've been a waterfowl hunter since I was 11 years old. And even before that, I tagged along with my dad and other family members in the Napa Marsh, pretty much as far back as I can remember. And back then, it wasn't even called the Napa Marsh Wildlife Area. At that time, when I was out there as a kid in the 80s and early 90s, that was Leslie Salt, and then Cargill Salt Company owned that property, and it was primarily used for salt production. So it's changed a lot since those days. Now I'm actually able to take my oldest daughter out hunting, and it's pretty neat to see the difference. All right, so this is just an overview map of the area, kind of give you an idea of essentially where it sits. Melissa touched on a lot of this, but it's north of 37 and west of 29, and then you got that northern boundary by 121 and 12. So access is pretty good coming from Petaluma, Sonoma, Napa, and Vallejo, and that's most of our hunters are coming out of those areas. But it is pretty accessible off of Interstate 80. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of the actual wildlife area boundary map, and including the open and the closed zones. So your closed zones are going to be the X'd out areas. And this map, if you're going to go hunt the area, what I would do is recommend downloading this map from our webpage, and we'll have links for you so that you can go do that. It's a PDF, and you can print it out and laminate it, have it with you in the field would be which is something I would recommend. And then this shows you, kind of gives you an overview of where all the different units sit. So I'll get into this more, but because the property is so big, the area is split up into different unit names. All right, so as far as the size goes of the wildlife area, we're looking at approximately 15,000 acres, and it's going to be mixed. You're going to have everything from your baylands, your sloughs, the Napa River, which is a larger waterway, those tidal wetlands, and then there's going to be a small amount of upland habitat, more on the northern side of the wildlife area. So historically, going back in time, what we call now the Napa River unit, that area was first, levied off or diked from the San Pablo Bay during the 1850s and was primarily used for hay production and cattle grazing. 100 years later, so going to the 1950s, that land started getting transitioned in the salt ponds. I saw it, the salt production, when I was a kid, and all the way to the 80s and early 90s. So at that point, the Cargill Salt Company stopped producing salt in those ponds that's on the west side of the Napa River, which we now know as the Napa River unit. And those ponds were sold to the state, and then that land was transferred to our department, Fish and Wildlife, to manage. Since then, we have done multiple habitat improvements. I think the most noticeable and the one that is just very obvious to see is going to be that tidal restoration. And primarily that was done with grading down those levees and then breaching those old levees that held in the salt ponds. So now all those old salt ponds have tule patches growing in them, and they provide really nice habitat. Okay, so the Napa Sonoma Marsh wildlife area is classified a type C area. And if you've hunted wildlife areas before, there's, you have a type A, a type B, and then a C. And on your type A and B areas, that's where you're going to have a passes, the season passes, and then sometimes you have to be drawn for the area and whatnot. On this type C area, you're not going to have any fee to enter. There's no passes required. You don't have to sign in or sign out anywhere. So the only thing you're going to need to have with you in your possession is just your hunting license, your duck validation, your migratory bird stamp, and your HIP validation. So once you have all that documentation, that's what you need. So one thing that does make this type C area different than some of the others is this type C area has hunt day restrictions. So during waterfowl season, the hunt days are only going to be on your Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesdays. So being a type C area, and there's not a lot of staffing there, so we don't have maintained blinds on this area. And no permanent blinds may be constructed. So what most people do is they will tend to hunt from their boats, or they carry temporary blinds, you know, of fabric or burlap that they can stake up around them for concealment. All your decoys and properties, including whatever blind material that you take out there, have to be removed daily from the area. And just thought of something touching on blinds. It is okay to use, in the regulations, it's worded as non-woody vegetation. So you can gather, you know, tules, lightweight, you know, weeds or whatever, and you can create a little blind that way. That is okay to do. Just don't cut down trees or heavy amounts of brush, and you'll be all right. At the end of the day, you want to, you know, police your blind area. Please pick up all your empty shotgun shells. Obviously, if everybody leaves those behind, by the end of the season, we have quite the pile of litter out there in some of these more heavily used places. And this wildlife area does have some authorized species. So you're only allowed to take waterfowl, coots, moorhen, quail, snipe, rabbits, pheasants, and doves. You may encounter some wild turkeys and some deer. Those are off limits. So, and there is also some good fishing opportunity out there. And just a quick little warning, just be aware there are a lot of swans that frequent the area. And obviously those are not allowed for take either.
Jesse, there's a question about whether or not you can take the other species if they have the same hunt days as the waterfowl. Is it,
you know,
just...
that's a good question, Sean. So during the first dove season, the first 15 days of the dove season, you can hunt the area daily. But then after that, for the remainder of the waterfowl season, it's going to be on Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday.
Good.
So I just kind of wanted to touch on some of the common signs that you might see, that hopefully you'll see when you're traversing the area. Basically, you know, the sign that's over on the left, that's just going to identify that you're on the wildlife area, and it should distinguish, not all of them, but most of them will distinguish which unit you're on. So in this one, it says Napa River unit. I know the font's pretty small in that picture, but it'll tell you which unit you're on. Doesn't have any regulatory information. Now the sign in the middle, you'll see these signs mostly at the main access points, and they'll touch on some of the basic regulations for the area, hunt days, species, and whatnot. And then as we move over to the right, you're going to see the close zone signs. So they are red in color, and there's two types. There's one type that says warning, close zone, no hunting. And then there's another one that says no hunting or trespassing. So when you see this one, the close zone, no hunting, it is okay to transit through that area to your hunting spot, or to retrieve birds out of that area. That would be okay, as long as you don't enter with the method of take. But the signs that say no hunting or trespassing, those are going to be completely off limits. So do not enter those areas.
Really quick, Jesse, before we move too far. First off, any questions that your participants have, please put them in the question and answer, because when you put them in the chat, they kind of get lost. But some people are asking about blinds that they've seen in San Pablo Bay. Are those, I'm not sure how close it is to the refuge, because I know we have the San Pablo wildlife area, but they're like full boat-in structures. What's the deal with those?
Yeah, those are not on the wildlife area. Those are actually out on the bay itself. And they are a floating boat-in blind. I believe the refuge might have regulations on that. I think they allow that. Maybe Melissa may know better.
Yeah, I'll interject just really quick. I know, so if you're traveling along Highway 37 and you look out toward the water, you can see these big blinds out there. So those big blinds are now out in the middle of tidal marsh vegetation. Those blinds historically were out in the open water, but now they are surrounded by very thick, almost knee-deep pickleweed. And if you get up very close to those blinds, you can see they're in horrible condition. So those blinds are not there. Those blinds are now in an area that is not open for waterfowl hunting on the refuge. They're pretty dilapidated.
Thank you.
Okay, so within the Napa-Sonoma Marsh, I touched on, we have the different units. So here's the 6 different units that where the waterfowl hunting is going to primarily take place. And those are Ringstrom, Wingo, Huaychica, American Canyon, Napa River unit, and then the Sonoma Creek or West End unit, as it's called on the map. So starting with the Ringstrom Bay unit, this sits over in Sonoma County. And to access this particular unit, it's going to be south of 12 off of Rammel Road. So what you're going to want to do is, as you travel out Rammel Road, you're going to want to look for this pole barn here in that lower picture. And adjacent to the pole barn, there's a parking lot. And there's some signs in the corner of the parking lot that have some regulations on them. And there's a trail right there, and that trail will lead you out into the unit. This unit, it has water pretty much on it all the time. It's a nice little marshland area. It's pretty easy to walk into. It's a good starting point. It's not very large in size, but it also doesn't get a tremendous amount of pressure. So moving over to the Wingo unit, or sometimes called Camp 2. This one is south of 12 again, off of Millerick Road. And as you travel out Millerick Road, the road turns to gravel, and then you continue on. And unfortunately, it floods a lot. So with this last rain we had last weekend, that big rain, the road got really damaged. And there was a lot of trees that went down. It flooded pretty bad. So at this point, I would not recommend it given the current conditions. But during a drier year, you can continue out that road to a parking lot, and there's some ponds out there that you can hunt. All right, this is the Hoodeman Slough boat ramp, and it doesn't sit on the wildlife area. It's not part of the wildlife area. I think it's managed by the County of Sonoma. But I thought it would be good to kind of touch on it because it is used as one of the main access points. The ramp itself is not routinely maintained. And as you can see, the boat docks are gone. They've been gone now for a few years. So this is not a ramp that I would recommend for a larger vessel. But I think if you're an experienced boater and you're used to running a small duck boat or kayaks, canoes, I think this would be a good option for you to access the marsh. The nice thing about this one is it puts you in that sheltered water. So you're not, if you do have a smaller duck boat, you're not forced to run up or down the Napa River, which can be pretty rough at times given strong tides and wind events. And to get out here, this is going to be south of Rammel Road again. And then you're going to want to look for Skaggs Island Road. So once you head south on Skaggs Island Road, it pretty much is going to dead end right here at this ramp. All right, so then moving on a little bit more to the east here, we have the Huaychica Creek or the Buckley Station unit. And honestly, I think this is going to be your best point if you're new to hunting the wildlife area. I think this is going to be one of your best walk-in units. So to access this is when it's going to sit in Napa County. So off of Duhigg and Las Amigas Road there, you're going to want to go south on Buckley Station Road. And that's going to be a paved road for a little while, and then it's going to turn to gravel and continue through some vineyards and then make its way over the top of the railroad tracks and into our parking lot. and it's a paved parking lot. And so from that lot there's a few trails that you can walk out, and you can actually see you have hunting area right there, really close to the parking lot itself. And then if you're willing to walk a little bit extra distance, there's a lot of land out there that you can cover. So there are one, thing to consider out here. There are a couple of closed zones. So there's homes along Milton Road, and you'll see there's some closed zones over there as you get closer to those homes, obviously for safety reasons. And then right behind the bathroom, there in the parking lot, there's a smaller pond, and that pond is also a closed zone. So you're going to want to look for those red signs.
Jesse, there was a question earlier, and I don't know if it was addressed. Is there any bike use on any of this area or not?
On type C units, there should not be any bicycles used on type C units. Okay, so for the American Canyon unit now, this access is a little difficult here. So you're gonna have to have a boat. It's actually in the regulations that for this area, it is boat in access only. The department just doesn't have a good, safe, legal way for people to enter this unit, because the city of American Canyon sits right there to the east of the unit. So this is obviously a tidal area. It's pretty variable. On a high tide, your water is going to be pretty good in there, but then on a lower tide, you're going to be down to mud flats or really shallow water. There are nice little tule patches out there, and it does hold quite a few birds, but it's going to be an area that you're going to need some specialized equipment, meaning boats and whatnot to get in there and hunt. So the entrance is going to be from the Napa River. And as far as landmarks go, the channel that enters the unit is going to sit between the old landfill, and then there's a shipwreck that's on the southern side of the entrance there, and all the locals seem to call it the old destroyer, but it's just an old rusty shipwreck. That would be your best landmarks. Okay, then moving over to the Napa River unit. This is, without a doubt, this is going to be the largest unit on the wildlife area. So for the most part, a boat is going to be required to access this unit, with one exception. And I'll talk about that here shortly. But for launching your larger boat to access this unit, I would recommend Vallejo, Napa, or Hootaman Sloop. And with that said, just, the Napa River can get really rough, especially on a big north wind event. You're going to have to, use some caution, be smart about things, make sure that your boat is seaworthy. If you're running during the hours of darkness, you're going to need to have navigation lights and whatnot. So that's my word of caution there. And then the entrances to the ponds. So if you were to access this area, and let's say you enter Dutchman Slough, and then you want to access some of the ponds, I would just, warn you that during the peak tide periods, the current going through those levee breaks can be pretty strong at times. So just use caution, especially if you're kayaking through those levee breaks. Here's a little bit, what the inside of one of those ponds is going to look like. This is pretty typical of what you'll see. So this picture was taken from one of the old levees, looking out into the center of one of those tidal ponds. This would be, a medium to a high tide. And you can see there's water out there. It's not really wadable per se, because around the exterior of these ponds, there's a borrow ditch. So that ditch there is pretty muddy, and it can be deep in places. It'd be really, really difficult to cross. And then out there where those tules are, on a lower tide, that would be mud flat. And the bottom is just really variable. There's some spots it's pretty solid, but then, you know, you go 3 feet and you would be up to your knee or thigh in mud. So I would, you know, really recommend that you have a small boat or something to try and get out there in the center of those ponds when you have water.
Yeah, if somebody asked a question, I was going to ask it to you too.
Yeah.
I think I know what it is, but what is a borrow ditch? I'm guessing it's the material they use to make the levee.
That's exactly it. I believe that's where that term came from. So they borrowed the material from the inside of that pond to construct the levee.
Yes.
Yep.
So right around the levee, you're going to have where an excavator pulled up material probably from both sides to lay it down to create this dike and, you know, create this pond. Or actually dry land at that time.
Yeah. All right. So I mentioned there's one exception for a walk-in area on the Napa River unit, and this would be it. So pond 1 and 1A. So this is going to sit off of Highway 37 right next to the Cullinan Ranch. And, you know, we share the parking lot even for the Cullinan Ranch access. So, you know, you could park in this lot, or you can park, I'm going to say it's about a 1/4 mile west down Highway 37. There's a little dirt area that you'll see a lot of vehicles parked in. It's very popular, and you can access pond 1. So you can walk out along the levees there in pond 1, or you can launch a kayak and you can kayak into pond 1. Most of the hunters that are hunting there in pond 1, they kind of do a combination of walk out, but then somebody in their group will have a kayak, and they use that kayak to retrieve their birds and to retrieve their decoys. Just because the bottom of that pond is pretty muddy. It's difficult to walk around in a lot of places. So, and then you're more than welcome to use the kayak ramp and dock that sits up right there next door at the Cullinan Ranch, and you could paddle through the Cullinan Ranch and actually go across Dutchman's Slough and into our tidal ponds that way too, if you'd like. I know a lot of these kayaks are nicer now with the foot pedals, and you can cover a lot of distance that way. Yeah. And then just a quick warning here, there is a close zone, and it's really well marked, and it's north of the power line. So there's a set of very large power lines that go across the pond. They run east-west, and underneath those power lines, there's like a boardwalk, and you would know it. I mean, it'd be very difficult to get in there and hunt the close zone, but it's well posted, and you just don't want to hunt that area. Okay. So then we'll move a little further down Highway 37 now, a little further west to Sonoma Creek, or the West End unit. This is a smaller unit. It's not very large, but there's a couple of places you can park here and access this. You could park right at the old abandoned Skaggs Island Road off of Highway 37, and you'll see this big white gate here. You can park there and walk down the old road and then access the pond. Or you can park over near the base of the Sonoma Creek Bridge. There's a Vista Point lot there, and you can walk in that way too. So there's one thing about this pond is the mud in it is really, really bad. It's got a lot of vegetation in it. You pretty much are forced to walk on the vegetation without sinking. But what I would do is, if I was to hunt this unit, I would probably do it later in the year after we've had more rain and some of those higher tides, because it tends to get a little bit more water in this pond. So that would make it better to hunt from a kayak. It'd be a lot easier to access it that way. All right, so as far as tactics go out here on the Napa Marsh, I really think there's something for everybody, every style. If you like to shoot over decoys, obviously there's plenty of places to do that. Pass shooting, if you're limited on equipment and you don't have decoys, there are areas that you can go where you can set up on levees where birds, travel between ponds, and you can successfully just pass shoot. On windy days, jump shooting is a good option because you can use your binoculars and glass to see where birds are holding behind levees in some of these ponds, and you can sneak up on them and jump shoot. So you know, the hunting possibilities from shore levees, boats, your kayak, and I've even seen a few people that have done the skull boating out here. So as far as waterfowl species go, we really have a good mixed bag out on the Napa Marsh. Of course, you know, all your puddle ducks, your mallard, teal, widgeon, pintail, gadwall, and then shovelers or spoonies. I would tend to say that I think teal and widgeon might be our two #1 species, followed behind by shovelers. Especially there seems to be a lot of shovelers taken up in the White Chica Creek unit. If you enjoy hunting diving ducks, the canvasback, scaup, redhead, goldeneye, buffleheads, there's a lot of opportunity out here for that also. It can be a really fun hunt, especially for new hunters. The action can be pretty fast and furious. As far as goose hunting goes, it's not a huge goose area by any means. There are some honkers taken every year, but the numbers are not that high. All right, so as far as recommendations go, if I was going to send a new hunter here, I would just kind of warn everyone that the mud can be really bad and to be prepared for it. You know, I would highly recommend having a dog to retrieve your birds or a small boat of some sort to paddle out and get your birds. And then I would say, and I kind of feel like this goes pretty much everywhere, is to check out these areas during an afternoon hunt for your first time. Or, you know, you can even, the Napa Marsh, you could go out there on a fishing trip on a non-hunt day, or just go out for a ride or a walk, because the area is open 7 days a week. It's just that you can only hunt on Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesdays. And I'll play this if I can get this to work here. I'll play this little video. You can see kind of what we're looking at mud-wise. So this would be a low tide in one of these ponds. And, you know, without a dog, this could be pretty tough to get your birds. You'll see, you know, she doesn't even really enjoy walking in this stuff. It's pretty.
Sorry about that. Got a frozen screen. All right. Hopefully Jesse can hear me, and maybe he'll stop his video play and we'll continue. Or I can shut it off for him. Well, I'll give him a second here to come back. All right. I'm going to stop his share. Let him come back. All right, Jesse, you there? Are you frozen in time? All right. Well, hopefully he'll be able to join us and he'll get back on here. Sorry about the screen having, he's at one of our regional offices and he should have great internet, but apparently it's not as good there in Yountville as it should be. So I had one question actually I wanted to ask you, Melissa, before Jesse comes back. Skaggs Island, I saw that's one of your guys' properties. Does that have any hunting opportunities on it? Because you didn't mention it in your.
Yeah, right. No, Skaggs Island is closed to the public. It hasn't been open for hunting. It is mainly an upland area. So I have thought about the opportunities for hunting on Skaggs Island. We would have to go through a pretty robust procedure, NEPA, a lot of documentation, a lot of paperwork, publishing it in the Federal Register.
Okay.
Definitely something that it's something to think about. It's something I've been thinking about for many years, but I will tell you that currently it's not open to waterfowl hunting, and it's not something that we're thinking about in the near term.
Okay, I just saw it as a property and I didn't know if I missed something on that, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask. Ed, since you're still there, if you could, you don't have to unmute your screen, but until Jesse comes back, maybe you can answer some of these questions for us. Let's see, what was Tole Creek? I don't know anything about Tole Creek or Lagoon. Is anybody available that might be able to answer that? Robert or Ed?
So I know that oh, go ahead, Ed, if you're gonna.
Yeah, go ahead, Melissa. You can answer that one better.
Okay, so I know that the Tole Creek is an area that is managed as part of the refuge that we leased from the state. And that the Tole Creek itself is open for waterfowl hunting 7 days a week. So you can boat up. But then when you get to the lagoon, Tole Lagoon, and it's my understanding, it's that basically the unit that's right along Highway 37. That is actually where it turns into cow, fish, and wildlife property. And that is not open to hunting. And I don't know if it's because it's so close to Highway 37, but that area has filled in recently with so much tidal marsh vegetation that it would have to be a really high tide to get in that lagoon. But regardless, the lagoon is not open to waterfowl hunting.
Yeah. So when it comes to people ask these questions about navigable waterways, and that's during, you have to maintain yourself in the main channel of the waterway. Anytime the water is high and it allows you to float over a property, that is not considered navigable waters as far as use of like an activity like hunting. You have to maintain yourself in the main channel of the waterway. Those little opportunities you may have to float over some other areas, that's not really a lawful activity. That makes sense. All right, let's see, there's another question. Is there any refuge that we don't need a boat and that we can hunt 7 days a week near to Contra Costa County? Only across the bay, right? You'd have to go on Don Edwards.
Yeah, nothing near Contra Costa.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. We don't have any federal wildlife refuges. I mean, other than the Sacramento Valley, SAC refuges, Los Banos, but not near the area that Antonio was asking about.
Okay. All right. And one more quick one. There are makeshift blinds along the water in this unit. Are they, I'm not sure what that's referring to, Eddie. All right. Well, we're not getting Jesse back. He's probably having difficulties like he did yesterday of entering back to us. If you have any questions that didn't get answered in tonight's webinar, please, you can email me. It's the same link as what you were registered to. I am going to send you some links. If you're registered for this event, you can reply to those asking me further questions and I'll pass them on to the appropriate person or answer them myself. So that's all we have for you tonight. Stay tuned later on this month if you're probably not from the South since you're interested in this, but I will continue to feature other areas, wildlife areas, and let people know of their opportunities to hunt on those areas. I will send you the survey link. If there's something in particular that you want to have covered, please feel free to request that in that survey so that I can get those type of webinars ready for you. That being the case, that's all we have. Thank you for joining us, Melissa. Jesse, wherever you are, thank you for trying to do this webinar with us, and good night.